Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we clear the decks so Patrick can talk about Shovel Knight for 20 minutes. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including announcements from Yacht Club Games. And then on Wednesday, not Thursday, we're going to be discussing the June Nintendo Direct. But Mark, in the meantime, how's it going?
It's going great. And look,
We know
we know that by the time you're listening to this episode, there's a very good chance.
a high likelihood chance, yes. Even if you're getting to it the same day we post it.
Exactly.
Yes.
That a Nintendo Direct has already happened.
Right. Someone is going to walk up to George Bush and whisper in his ears, a second Nintendo Direct has happened.
A second Nintendo. Yeah, that's right.
That's right. And so we know that we are putting out an episode here that will be made, I don't know, irrelevant in the next 7 hours.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
It won't be irrelevant because we're not talking about
Right.
the Nintendo Direct other than
That
what we're doing
we know,
right now.
We know that it's happening,
Yeah.
and it'll come up again in the news. But here's our vow to you, listener. We're not going to predict anything.
We're not. No predictions.
Because look, we've done that. There's an episode from 2-3 weeks ago where we did predictions with Matt and Emily. It's a fun episode. So check that out if you want to hear predictions.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
I don't think we made it a part of the $1 million bet.
Yeah.
But we were predicting when Nintendo, we talked about when do you think a Nintendo Direct is going to happen?
Yes.
And you and I nailed it.
Well, I said Thursday, I think. I think I said Thursday of this week, but I said this week for sure.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I'm pretty sure it was this week.
Yes, you and I were both firmly set on this week. We weren't looking ahead enough to be like 19th, obviously not because of the holiday, but we should have. And the next time we do this kind of exercise,
It's another data point.
it's another data point. So
I think that covers. Oh, this
Yes.
is the other thing I wanted to
Yeah.
say. Consider this episode what Nintendo does just before a Nintendo Direct, where they put out a bunch of Twitter announcements.
yeah.
This is all the Mega Man Game Boy games are coming.
Absolutely. Yes. That is however you can make that math work in your head. It's an analogy, right? Like on the SAT test that they would do those analogies.
Yes.
And for us, this is that.
Yes. I think we did it.
I think we did it too. Also, this is the thing that we didn't do. Wednesday. So the Direct is happening on Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. Mark and I will be discussing it Wednesday morning, and the episode will be coming out at some point during the day on Wednesday.
Yes.
So earlier than usual, about 24 hours after the Direct happens. So all of our ideas, all of our thoughts and impressions will be nicely percolated and
Oh yeah, it's gonna be
it's
really
gonna be
well
smooth.
thought out.
Yeah. It's not gonna be shooting from the hip
No,
we do
it's gonna be
sometimes.
beautiful.
Right. It's gonna be well
It's
informed.
gonna be like a symphony.
It'll be like a symphony of coffees. Does that make sense?
It's like a metaphor. Just imagine what we were talking about with the Mega Man Game Boy announcements,
Right.
and then us doing whatever we're doing right now in
Yep,
this episode.
This is that.
plus a symphony of coffees.
Yeah.
And you've got it all worked out.
Right. It's important to know that this is like a metaphor, which means it's a simile, but it's like a metaphor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense to me.
All right. Well, if you would like to support us in whatever this is, you should head on over to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where things are changing, Mark.
A little bit.
Things
for
are changing
the better.
They're changing for the better, absolutely. I was going to try to evoke the lyric from Wicked, but I don't actually know Wicked well enough.
Yeah, me
Change
either.
for the better, change for the good. Something like that. Change for good.
I don't know.
Look, the movie's coming out this Christmas.
Part one.
Part one. It'll be very good. Anyway, so here, first of all, if you are a subscriber, a patron at the 8-bit or 16-bit levels, you can get access to our once a month episodes of miniseries that we're putting out. We're making our way currently through NCS Arcade.
That's right. And in NCS Arcade, Patrick and I are playing games that are available on Nintendo Switch Online that we've never beaten before.
Yep.
And for June, we are going to be talking about Earthbound. From the Super Nintendo.
Yes. And then that's traditionally the end of our miniseries.
Right, because this will be 6 episodes.
That'll be
of
6
NCS
episodes.
Arcade.
And we will have done one from each of the platforms. I feel very good about that.
But NCS Arcade isn't ending.
No, because, hey, we like it.
We like it. We don't know exactly what that means yet.
Right.
Because does it mean that we'll continue to play games that are only available on Nintendo Switch Online?
Probably not.
Does it mean that it'll only be games that both Patrick and I have never beaten before?
Also probably not.
Yeah, we just don't know.
Although we like that angle. We like neither of us going into the games as experts.
Right.
Because then the deep dive feels a little bit more organic. And like we can approach them in a little bit more personal way, where we say, "What's your experience with this game?" And we can be like, "Not really anything, very little." So that's big change number 1 is that there will be an episode 7 of NCS Arcade. We don't know what that is, and it'll come out sometime in July. But so look forward to that. Also, if you are following us for free on Patreon, or are you a 4-bit supporter, we've got something coming for you too.
That's right. So it's not something we've really talked about before in the past, but you can follow us on Patreon for free. And if you do that, we are going to be releasing the feedback episodes as to anyone who's following. So the 4-bit tier and the free tier.
Right. So these are the email episodes of NCS Arcade. So we will be releasing the one that we did for, what was the game we did? Not before Metro.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2, yes. That will be available for free for anyone who wants to follow us at Patreon. And then also this Metroid one, which will be coming out shortly, will also be free to everyone. And there will be a Earthbound one that will also be free to everyone. So get in there, and maybe this is an encouragement to send more emails, because we will incorporate those into the sort of feedback episodes, like Mark said.
And just to be clear, the 8-bit and 16-bit patrons will also continue to get
those. Gated.
Reverse gated.
Of course, you are correct. They will be going to everyone. And then the last little bit here is that if you are a 4-bit supporter, we are going to be opening some of the archives in the Patreon. The NCS Detective Club Season 1 is going to be available for 4-bit patrons. We're going to open them all up on July 1st.
That's right. And then the plan is to continue to release previous miniseries
once we get 12 months out from it.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be there'll be a pretty long tail there. But so those are all the changes happening around the Patreon. Hopefully that sounds like fun. That feels like additive and good. But email us if it feels weird. And speaking of emailing us, you can do that by emailing us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. And we will send you an invitation to our Discord if that's something you are interested in. Discord is, of course, a place where you can chat about what's going on in the world of Nintendo. There's going to be a direct. I'm going to be in there at 7 a.m. this morning. Mark, I believe you will also be in there to talk about what we're seeing. It's going to be an exciting time.
It's going to be great.
And then lastly, of course, I have an issue. I have 3 issues. My God, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle source book is out in comic book stores now. Issues 1, issues 2, issues 3 are all there. So check them out. Issue 4 is coming out sometime July, August. I don't really know. So pre-order that if you are interested. All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. Okay, so we actually haven't talked to each other about games that we've been playing for
close to 3 weeks,
almost a month at this point. So the first thing that I just have to say is that I beat Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Whoa, congratulations.
I got to the end of the game. I saw the end of the game. I was excited about it all the way through. Thought the end was great. I left a lot of stuff on the table that I want to get back to, but I will do that in good time.
does the second game, the ending of the second game, kind of tee up what the third game will entail?
That's hard to answer.
Well, because the first one,
kind of.
well, because I feel like the first one, at least,
Yes.
like
The first one
made
sets
it
a
clear.
direction.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that the second, it's tough because the second one feels like a much clearer thematic statement to me, and maybe not as clear of a plot mechanic statement. Whereas remake is sort of that flipped, where like remake ends being like we're dealing with multiversal storytelling, and throughout Rebirth, it's kind of like, but are we? And by the end of Rebirth, I'm like, I don't know if we are.
Oh, that's cool.
So, but I have a lot stronger impression of what that means to the characters and to like the themes that the story is exploring.
That sounds cool.
I mean the game is literary, and I think it is the closer I got to the end and like actually finishing it, like started to break my heart that it's not performing as well as the first one, because I think it really is like a singularly intelligent video game story and experience that like it's just really, really good.
I think, at least on the bright side, that they'll finish it.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, and I also think that in time, people will get around to playing Rebirth, and maybe even when they finish the trilogy, that people will then like go back around and finish it all. My gameplay clock when I finished was 100 hours, 22 minutes.
Oh, very good.
So like I played
Broke the century mark.
I broke the century mark, and so yeah, I don't know. I loved it, and I know I've been talking about it on the show for a while, even though it's not a Nintendo game. So maybe we should move on to what else we've been playing this week.
I have really spent the last few weeks playing Earthbound when I had the time, and of course, we're going to be talking about that more on the Patreon feed.
Yes,
but I will.
a tease.
The beginning of Earthbound brought up a question in my mind.
Yes,
and in RPGs where you are able to name the characters,
yes,
willy-nilly, or anything else you want them to be named, what do you?
Well, Willy and Nilly for the first two, of course.
Do you choose to go by the canon names, or do you do you prefer to put in your own names or nicknames, like the names of your friends or whatever?
It depends on whether. So I either like to do that and be a stinker, or I like to give them their canon names. If I am just naming a single character and there is a canon name, sometimes I will just name them Ellers, which is like my go-to. In Pokemon, I call the character Ellers.
Yeah.
But in the case of Earthbound, canon names all around.
Yeah, same. And one thing that's interesting at the beginning of Earthbound is it asks you to name like 4 characters. Right. It shows you who they are, and
a bunch of other stuff.
It also, yes, a bunch of other stuff. But the character names, it gives you the opportunity to like have the game choose one for you, and there's like 3 or 4 options for each character, and one of them is like the canon name, and then the other 3 are just other names that the characters could be. And I just think that's interesting. I chose to go with canon names on all of them.
We'll talk about it when we talk about it, but I do think it's interesting that there's like the part where it's like, what's your favorite thing?
Yes.
And then it names one of your spells that.
Yeah.
Which like I had sort of forgotten that like it did that, because I should stop talking about Earthbound because we're going to talk about Earthbound in just a couple weeks. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to like a deep dive conversation here.
Yeah, me
because
too.
What a weird game.
What a weird game. This is by far the farthest I've ever gotten to it.
Yeah,
so,
no, me too.
It'll be fun to talk about.
The only other thing I want to ping from this week that I've been playing is I'm back on the Picross train wagon.
Chugga 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 chugga
chugga choo. Picross S, the Namco Classics, whatever it's called, Namco something or other. Man, I tell you what, when I'm doing one of those puzzles and it turns out to be Pac-Man, I'm delighted.
What other Namco characters?
It's best not to think about it.
I genuinely am struggling.
It's I think I expressed this before, but the bass music in this Picross game genuinely bad. I'm like, I don't like it. I have to turn it down and can't listen to it. But, like, kind of who cares? There's something about seeing all of this pixel art as I complete these puzzles, whether I recognize it or not, that is just, like, rewarding and I like it. So I've expressed it a million times, but I'll keep expressing it. Do this for every publisher of 80s arcade games. Like, I want it. They worked great for Sega. It's working great for Namco. Do it for Nintendo. Do it for everyone.
Yeah.
Gimme, gimme, gimme. I'm insatiable.
Is the music that's playing from Namco games?
Now, how would I know
No,
that?
do you know what? I retract the question.
Unless that's
stupid of me, right? Yeah, no. Dumb of me to ask. I wouldn't know. I would have no clue.
Well, like, what does Dig Dug sound like? Can you tell me? All right, okay. That's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
We're not going to be playing any of these.
We're not going to be playing any of these games. There are a couple of games listed here for release this week, but frankly, I think there are going to be some shadow drops, whatever, at the Nintendo Direct.
And since we're not speculating,
right,
we should just move on.
Wow. This is the shortest this segment has ever been. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So for the duration of one performance, 433, Mark and I'll talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, pose your question.
Ironing your clothes.
Uh-huh.
Do you do it?
No.
Yeah, I think it's, generally speaking,
you and I also don't dress up that much.
We don't.
Right.
We're not really particularly dressy people.
Right. And we neither of us...
We always look sharp.
Right. No, we look good. I'm not saying we don't look good.
But we look casual.
We look casual when neither of us have jobs that require us to dress up.
That's
right.
right.
I mean, first of all, I'm the boss at my job.
And I'm not, but
you work from home.
But I work from home.
Right. So, yeah, which means that I am, not that I'm bad at it, but I simply don't do it.
Yeah.
Iron clothes.
Yeah, I think I probably am objectively bad at it. So my husband and I own an iron, a steamer.
Yeah, that steamer's clutch.
The steamer is clutch, but I'm even looking for a simpler solution. The reason this is on my mind is because I was packing or unpacking and washed a bunch of clothes. Bunch of stuff is now like wrinkled.
Right.
Like, what am I gonna do? Because I think your options are
throw it away.
Throw it away. Viable. Take it to be pressed. I think you could just take it to a dry cleaner. You don't have to get it like cleaned. You could just ask it to be pressed.
Right.
The steamer.
Mm-hmm.
We own an iron, but not an ironing board, which makes things complicated. So.
Oh yeah, where do you do it then? On the
guess
floor?
You would just you maybe like put a towel on the kitchen table and then.
I think you just get an ironing board.
You probably
what does an ironing board cost?
We're not gonna do that. Oh, $15.
Yeah, I was gonna say 23.
And then, so we have a steamer, which works okay. But I am looking for even the lazier solution, and so I bought on Amazon like wrinkle release spray.
Okay.
So the idea is that you like spray it onto your clothes and then just kind of smooth it out.
So is this the clothes need to be like laying on a surface or hanging somewhere?
Maybe hanging somewhere.
Yeah.
But I think like laying it out on your bed would work.
Right.
Like I don't think it's.
But then where do you sleep?
Well, temporarily.
I see.
You lay it on the bed temporarily, spray it, smooth it out,
wrinkle release,
and then do whatever, wear it, presumably.
I've never heard of this product before.
Yeah, I hadn't either. But I was just looking for simple solutions to a not very complicated problem, and that's what I found.
Because the problem with the steamer is that like you kind of need to do it while your clothes are hanging, right?
You need to do while your clothes are hanging, and also, okay. Here's a question with the steamer.
Yeah.
How close do you hold it to your clothes? Is it like an iron where you should be pressing it to your clothes?
I don't think so. I think you need like an inch.
Oh, okay.
But like
the steam is the important part, not like pressure
right
applied.
I mean, I think because if the important part is the pressure applied, then it is just an iron.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? Like it's just a vertical iron.
Yeah.
which doesn't seem like a good product.
Sometimes I will accidentally buy clothes that I realize, oops,
Yeah, should be ironed.
this needs to be ironed.
Here's actually, I do have like a backlog of like a couple shirts where I'm like, ooh, I need to make a point to just like iron that someday.
Yeah.
And I just have not. And it has been now probably months like that where I'm like, I should really iron that out. And it's usually like something around the buttons, right? Where I'm like, this thing got like weirdly bunched around. I just need to like flatten it back out. But I'm sure all of my shirts could use a once over,
Right,
with
yeah.
with an iron.
Yeah.
Pants too, maybe, but like jeans don't really matter.
Jeans don't really matter. We're casual guys.
We're casual guys. What do you want from us? We don't.
I feel like pressed jeans would look wrong.
Right. I'm not going to suggest that we start pressing our jeans. I'm saying that there are shirts of mine that require.
Sounds like you're advocating for everybody to go out and get their jeans
Okay,
pressed.
I don't. I'm not. Look, I'm going to say again. I am not saying that you should go out and have your jeans pressed.
Interesting.
Do it at home. You
Yeah, that's right. Get your own jeans presser.
That's right. Yes. You can go on Amazon, find a jeans presser, and press your jeans. It sounds like you would get jean juice out of that from pressing your jeans.
It does. It does. High in fiber, I'm sure. What if I don't really have very many like dry clean only clothes.
No, I really don't
Either.
either. I mean, I have like a suit and like a handful of other like pieces of clothing that are dry clean only. And like when I get, we'll take those to the dry cleaner and like they come back and they're like pressed and everything. But yeah, it's so infrequent.
I know. I wonder if my life would be better if I did own a bunch of dry clean only clothes, because then I would have a reason to go to the dry cleaner and then have a reason to give them my jeans to be pressed.
I see. So you would just be taking other stuff at that time.
Yeah.
Why not also?
They'd basically just be doing all my laundry.
Okay, now, again, I don't think you should be getting your jeans pressed. All right, we were accompanied today by an ensemble at the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix. Mark, let's close the segment out.
Okay, here is all the news from last week that is not the Nintendo Direct.
Right. I mean, first, just to note, there is a Nintendo Direct.
It probably already happened.
That's right, 7 a.m., 40 minutes. We'll talk about it on Wednesday.
Yacht Club Games presents. This happened last week and was celebrating the 10th anniversary of Shovel Knight.
So much was it celebrating the 10th anniversary of Shovel Knight that they revealed a T-shirt celebrating, you guessed it, the 10th anniversary of Shovel Knight. And I pre-ordered it.
I love it.
I'm very excited. It's a black T-shirt, got a little gold Shovel Knight on it, and like the number 10, and that's about it.
I love that they spent the beginning part of this presentation just going through the history of Shovel Knight.
Yeah, me too. They've done these Shovel Knight or these Yacht Club presents things before, and they always kind of like lean into the Nintendo Direct format, including like whatever kind of awkwardness of like, here are some updates and here's like some merch and stuff. But I don't know, it's just so like brimming with personality that I'm like, yep, I like this. Also, it's a product and a studio that I love, so of course I'm in the tank for it.
This is tangential.
Yeah.
But didn't Yacht Club, they started publishing other people's games?
Yes.
Or
so,
at least they did like one.
Yeah, Cyber
right?
Shadow.
The Cyber Shadow, yeah.
Is not a Yacht Club developed game, but it is a game that they published, and presumably that they used like some of their shared knowledge to like get that game over the finish line, because it has like, it feels like a Yacht Club game in just its level of polish and the way it looks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're really just like Shovel Knight and then the upcoming Mina the Hollower.
But that's the one that they like published from
Correct.
Another, interesting. Because that was a few years ago.
Yeah,
I just remember when it was announced, it seemed like, oh, is this like going to be a new going concern for Yacht Club games? And it really hasn't been.
Well, and I wonder if their other games are just like have been in the incubator. Well, and honestly, like I believe that Pocket Dungeon and Dig are developed by like partners.
You're right.
Yeah.
I think that is true, that some of these Shovel Knight spin-offs have been, but so I guess technically that counts, but was not what I was thinking when Cyber Shadow was the first one in that initiative.
I mean,
quote unquote.
but if those three are the three games that have been developed by other that's a pretty good showing then.
Yeah, that's
from
not.
them.
You're right. That's not bad because I think Cyber Shadow was what 2020, 2021 maybe.
I don't
I don't
remember.
know. I don't know either.
Will never remember.
Okay, so a bunch of updates to the Shovel Knight games were announced. Shovel Knight Dig is getting the Wicked Wishes DLC. It's free. It comes out sometime this summer, and it will have new challenges, missions, mini games, secret locations, plus balance tweaks and bug fixes.
This looks great. So the last update to Shovel Knight Dig was a little bit on the lighter side, and it included some just individual challenges as you're going down into the pit.
And Shovel Knight Dig is the rogue.
That's the roguelike one, yeah. That has a little bit more of a 16-bit aesthetic versus the 8-bit aesthetic of the main Shovel Knight Treasure Trove games. I loved Dig. I don't know if you recall that there was that period where that was all I was playing. But loved it. But didn't really dig in too much to the last update that also included a 2-player, a challenge mode kind of thing. But this stuff looks there are new weapons, and like it says, challenges, missions, mini games. It seems like it's going to be awesome, and I'm very excited for even for the base things that they're advertising here of balance tweaks and bug fixes. Not that the game is buggy or that it's unbalanced, but for a roguelike, there are times when I could be pretty early in a run and come up against a pretty difficult challenge. So I don't think it always was scaled the right way in that regard. The ramp up in difficulty was never as gradual, or it didn't always make sense. Sometimes there'd be these big spikes. So I'm hoping some of that gets addressed. I'm very excited to jump back into Shovel Knight Dig.
Then the next DLC that was announced was for Shovel Knight Dungeon, and you'll have to remind me, what is Shovel Knight Dungeon?
It's Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon.
Dungeon
is the name of the game. This is it's a sort of action puzzle game that takes place on a grid where Shovel Knight is moving around and lining up enemies as they fall as well, and then attacking them. And every time you attack an enemy, they get a chance to attack you back. But it all happens real fast. And it also has a roguelike structure in that every time you die, you got to start back over at the beginning, but with some upgrades that either you earn or that you buy with the currency you earn. It becomes a little bit easier to do these things. I never totally wrapped my head around Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, so I'm happy that this Paradox pack is coming to the game, and I will certainly check it out because I'm a glutton for all things Shovel Knight, but I anticipate not wrapping my head around this as well.
It's free DLC.
Yep.
That is coming soon. No specific date, but it introduces new playable characters, stages, relics and items, secret quests, and cheat codes.
Yeah, which maybe that's good for me, right? Maybe that'll help me. There's one of the playable characters is the new character in Pocket Dungeon, who is Puzzle Knight. His head is the top of a fountain pen. So he's really cool looking, and maybe it's worth it just to go back in to try to play as Puzzle Knight.
That's funny. I would say maybe the biggest, meatiest announcement for that's Shovel Knight related is the announcement of Shovel Knight Shovel of Hope DX, which is a kind of enhanced deluxe edition of the original game.
Right. Almost in some enhanced deluxe. I would even describe it as kind of a cracked out version of the original game.
Yeah, it sounds like they're truly blowing it out. They're introducing 20
playable characters,
online multiplayer, a rewind and save features. It seems like it's going to be pretty cool. So I bought Shovel Knight on the 3DS.
Yes.
And I had it was too hard for me.
Yeah.
And so this sounds like something that I would be interested in.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be easier if you want it to be easier, harder if you want it to be harder, and just more option rich. End of sentence there. And I think it'll be a really cool, fun experience. I know that there's a little bit of a because the treasure trove is still out there, right? And the treasure trove still has the original Shovel of Hope, the Plague of Shadows, Spectre of Torment, King of Cards and Shovel Knight Showdown all in it, and that this is not like something that just comes with that. This is a game that you have to buy separately, and that can feel a little bit like are you just trying to sell me this game again with like some little tweaks to it? And like maybe that is the case. But like Mark, if you bought that on 3DS, you have access to the entire Shovel Knight treasure trove from your original purchase of Shovel Knight.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's all there. Because at the time they were just like, yeah, it's Shovel Knight. It's before they even dreamed of calling it Shovel of Hope. So, just retroactively like renaming it just like a Star Wars A New Hope. But yeah, so I know that like causes a little like wrinkle of like, oh, what is it? Make me buy it again. But I am hopeful that the new game is enough different and enough like exciting that it feels like it's worth whatever they're asking for it. And again, we don't know price, we don't know when it's coming out.
Yeah, there's not even a release window for it.
Right.
Speaking of which, there was also a tease of a new Shovel Knight game that they didn't show anything for and just talked about it in generality.
Yes.
Is that generalities?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Press your jeans.
Do not
saying,
press your
quote,
jeans.
A bold new adventure that will launch Shovel Knight into an entirely new dimensions of gaming.
Right, seemingly teasing some sort of 3D version of Shovel Knight, Shovel Knight 64, for example. As always, whatever this is, I'm in. But yeah, I mean that's it. This is like the sort of like king of teases where it's like we genuinely don't know anything. It's not even like seeing Metroid Prime 4 now in development,
right?
Which may or may not be in the direct. We're not predicting that.
I mean, we did 3 weeks ago.
That's right.
But we're not in this episode.
And that was Emily, technically.
There was also a trailer for Mina the Hollower,
which is looking great.
It is looking great, but we still don't have a release window or anything like that.
Right. Well, it's also a little like it's nice to have Mina the Hollower footage like surfaced here in a presentation like this. A lot of the items and locations and characters and enemies and all that kind of stuff had already been shown off on their the thing where you ask people to pay you for the Kickstarter.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Because they've had a very active Kickstarter that they use to partially fund the game, but mostly just to communicate with the people who have already like pre-ordered it. So yeah, a lot of that stuff is not new for people who've been following Mina the Hollower closely. I think that game looks great, and I'm very excited to learn more about it when they have more to say.
A new game? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, there's a little bit more.
Yeah.
So they went through a bunch of like different merch partnerships that they have. They're working on new plushes and like stuff like that. But one thing that like genuinely caught my eye was that they are re-releasing the 4-pack of albums for the game's original soundtracks on vinyl, which is like one of the coolest things in my mind that you could buy from Shovel Knight and from the franchise, and they've been out of circulation for a couple of years now, especially in like the full one collection set, and so I don't think they had a date on when that was getting restocked or anything, but this is like that is a set of vinyl. I don't have a record player, but I am interested in picking these up anyway, on the off chance that I get a record player someday and want to put on Shovel Knight, I could do that.
Is it also crazy in that the Shovel Knight series got a bunch of amiibo, right? Like 5 of them?
4 of them, yeah. Each of the playable characters in the 4. So there's Shovel Knight, Plague Knight, Spectre Knight, and King Knight. And I only have the Shovel Knight. I guess there was also the gold Shovel Knight too. Is that what you're you were looking at me a little bit.
Well,
like
I was just
I didn't know what I was talking about.
The reason I looked this up was like, did these amiibo release in Japan?
Great question. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Do they like Shovel Knight in Japan? We don't know.
I don't know. I think Nintendo published it in Japan. It's just interesting that Shovel Knight got amiibo.
Yeah, well, it's something that they like. another like part of this Yacht Club Direct was, or presents, whatever they call it, was there like Shovel Knight has been a cameo character in a lot of like indie games and obviously in like Smash Brothers, and they like re-engaged a lot of those partners for like the limited time Shovel Knight cameos, that he's like coming back to like Brawlhalla and all these other games. So they said he's appeared in like 50 other games that aren't
Whoa.
Shovel Knight, which seems crazy to me, but I think they're just like they know that like the Shovel Knight is a charismatic little design, and they're like, yeah, we'll do whatever we can to put him in everything. And now we can.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
No, you're right.
Just double checking.
You're good.
A new game in the Life is Strange series has been announced and confirmed to be coming to Switch, called Life is Strange Double Exposure. It releases October 29th on other platforms, but is coming to Switch at a later unannounced date.
Okay, so Jeremy and I did talk about this 2 weeks ago, but I saw you put it in the run of show, so I was like, Mark's got some take on this, which I would love to hear.
Well, the only thing I have to add is that the last game in the series, True Colors, was released in September of 2021 and then on Switch in December of 2021.
Sure. So you think probably not very long of a time difference.
Well,
3 months.
Well, what I'm thinking is this going to also be available on the Switch successor?
That's sure, as like a separate SKU, you mean, or or exclusively available on the Switch successor? Can we talk about this for a second?
Yeah.
Because obviously we are heading into like new console generation, blah 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 blah. It seems like a lot of third-party developers are obviously like hurting for that like additional power that the Switch isn't doesn't provide at the moment. But everyone is also hurting for the audience that the original Switch has.
Right.
So what do you think we're going to see in the next 2 years? A lot of games for the new Switch, a lot of games for the old Switch.
I wonder if it'll be like this, for example, if it'll be 2 separate SKUs.
Sure.
Like 2 separate releases, even though the Switch successor will probably be backwards compatible.
Totally. Yeah.
That there will be a like Switch 2 version and then a Switch version of these cross-platform releases.
And probably no easy path to upgrade one to the other.
Probably not.
And no kind of like smart delivery or anything like that.
Right.
It's just like, you just think about like, okay, what are Nintendo's priorities going into this new generation? And it's like, okay, do they have a system seller, something that you absolutely must? But then it's like, they're limiting the number of that game they can sell to the number of Switch 2s that are out there.
Right.
Which will definitionally never be as high as what's almost certainly going to wind up being the best-selling console of all time.
But also, you think like, well, do they want to prioritize adoption of the new system?
Right.
So that's something that PlayStation has seen, and really even Xbox. Like, after the Xbox showcase, Phil Spencer was on IGN or something saying, there's
probably apologizing for something.
There's more like active Xboxes right now than ever before. And that's probably true because people, like cross-generationally between Xbox Ones and then the Xbox Series consoles, I think PlayStation has a lot of the same thing where like there are still a ton of people playing on PlayStation 4.
Right.
Not that the PlayStation 5 is selling poorly, but so where does that leave Nintendo? Like you're saying, what do they prioritize?
Right.
Do they prioritize moving people over to the Switch successor? Because Microsoft and Sony have not really done that.
And when they release games that would presumably do that, Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, it doesn't work. And the games just don't sell that well.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's Nintendo so seldom, and this is a point that Jeremy and I were talking about 2 weeks ago, that like it doesn't feel like Nintendo is on fire yet.
Mm-hmm.
So like they don't have this like imperative to move people over to new hardware. They're gonna do it because it like feels like it's time, and they could probably start selling them, and because the power thing is like real. But it's also like they don't have a market imperative to do that right now.
Well, the other thing is, let's say that, and this is not a prediction of any kind,
No predictions.
but let's say when Metroid Prime 4 shows up and it's for Switch.
Yeah.
And I think the immediate next sentence that people are going to say is, well, is it also going to come to Switch 2? And we're not going to know the answer to that for months, right?
Right.
But
or
then even
years, possibly.
Right. Well, I think that's a good point, because it doesn't have to be in the Switch 2 launch window where they would be like, I guess if Metroid Prime 4, as an example of like what Breath of the Wild did, they're like, oh, it's coming to Wii U, and then when the Switch was revealed, they're like, it's also coming to Switch day and date.
Right.
Let's say they wanted to do something like that for Metroid Prime 4, and we won't know if they're doing that for a long time, and 2, is Metroid Prime 4, are they going to want to spend a bunch of time with the Switch successor announcement, like talking about Metroid Prime 4? It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, totally.
As Breath of the Wild. So I don't feel like they're going to want to spend a bunch of time being like, and then these games that we already announced are also coming to Switch 2.
Which is also like, because the Breath of the Wild, Wii U and Switch are virtually identical games, right? Like, there's nothing that one doesn't perform better than the other, one doesn't look better than the other. I guess like the only difference is like the Wii U gamepad like looks worse than your Switch screen. But like, is that what if they're releasing a Switch version and a Switch 2 version of Metroid Prime 4? Like, what's the difference going to be? They're not going to develop like a more powerful version of the game, right? They've been working on Metroid Prime 4 for like 7 years,
right? Unless they do. But Metroid Prime, but Metroid Prime, right? Like, I mean,
of course.
But Metroid Prime 4, aside,
which we are not making any predictions.
We're not making any
about,
predictions. Right. Maybe it has already shown up.
Right. Maybe it's shadow dropped already by the time you're listening to this.
That'd be pretty incredible.
That would be nuts. Not a prediction.
Finally, support for X, formerly known as Twitter, has officially ended on Switch with the Switch system update that was released last week on June 11th.
Yep. So no more Twitter integration on the Switch, which I mean, like, it feels like it kind of feels like both platforms are like fading into obscurity at this point. So maybe it's fine. But like, I will miss the sort of like ease of social media integration at the beginning of the Switch generation.
Totally. I mean, I remember playing one of the Box Boy games on the 3DS during the life of the show and being like, oh, I want to share a picture of this. And I think I ended up taking a picture of my 3DS screen with my phone in order to do that. And we're kind of back at that point. Like, if you want to share something, like a screenshot from your Switch, you either have to put it on your SD card and then put your SD card into the computer, or maybe there's some way to like use the USB-C port to plug your Switch directly into your computer. But
this should be Nintendo Switch phone app.
It should be
stuff.
Yes, it should be so much easier to do this.
And maybe it will be on the next thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, well, and also just like there was a time where you could you could tell your Switch to like go through your like mutual Twitter followers, people that followed you and that you followed, and if they had a Switch ID associated with their thing, that it could suggest them as friends on the Switch. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's so funny, like the different options, because like you could do Twitter or Facebook or Super Mario Run was like another way that you could get friends, and then of course importing them from 3DS and Wii U. But yeah, I wonder, like, how is the friend making mechanic on the next thing just going to be import them from Switch and then like add them manually?
Which probably because again, I think it's another benefit of Nintendo having such a huge user base with the Switch.
Yeah,
that you probably already have a ton of connections on there that you won't have to start over with.
Yeah. Maybe too many. I maybe have too many friends on Switch right now. Whenever I'm playing anything, there's always like a little alert of like people popping on to play something, and I will never disable that. I will never.
No, I love that. In fact, we have our friend codes in the show notes of every episode.
You should be friends with us so you can see us opening up the Super NES Nintendo Switch Online app over and over.
Yeah, that's right.
And then taking a break with a little Picross. All right, Mark, that's the news because obviously the real news is going to be this Nintendo Direct about which we are making no predictions. So let's close this episode out. That's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. We will be back tomorrow with more. If you are not already in our Discord, email us Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com.
And I will send you an invitation. I will check those emails before the Direct. So hopefully we can get everybody in there that wants to be discussing it. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.